It is now time to proceed to the concluding remarks of this fourth edition of the Athens Roundtable on AI and the rule of law. And let us therefore return to Athens in Greece. And let me first hand over the floor to Mr. Christos Dimas, Deputy Minister for Developments and Investments, and a great friend and supporter of the Athens Roundtable since the beginning. Mr. Dimas, the floor is yours, and thanks for being with us.
Hello, just to make a small correction, I'm not in Athens. I'm in Corinth, but yes, I am in Greece. I do want to congratulate the organizers of the Athens Roundtable for Artificial Intelligence and the Rule of Law. I think it's an excellent initiative, which will continue to be very important for artificial intelligence. So some decades ago, when we would mention AI, it would only be a concept mostly used in academic circles referring to the future. In the 90s, and especially in my generation, it was very famous for the chess competitors that would attempt to defeat the famous world champions based on machine learning and AI. And that was, though, a strong indication that AI was approaching more evidently in concrete aspects of life. Today, though, AI affects our everyday life in almost everything. For example, we drive our cars and receive useful advice about which route to follow, or even accurate directions and informing us how much time we need in order to reach our destination. Allow me, though, to point that we, in the verb drive, as we already is something that perhaps in the future, but even today, we will not use that much, as we already have activated automated vehicles that are educated with data in order to recognize obstacles and avoid them, in order to act as human drivers that will successfully help us complete our trips to our destination. We also, though, use AI and robotics in everyday issues such as new technology, vacuum cleaners, for example, smart houses, music selection, but also on financial tools, insurance products, medical advice, and many other sectors. In some countries, they have already started using algorithms for judicial decisions, therefore, to a certain extent, replacing judges' physical presence in courtrooms. However, I do want to state that as far as AI is concerned, our first and utmost priority in the digital era is to use it in conformity with human rights and democratic values, and in compliance with EU rules and guidelines for artificial intelligence. What I do want to state regarding especially the startup and innovation ecosystem in Greece is that up until recently, we didn't have any data about the startup ecosystem. So we decided to create a startup registry, which we call Elevate Greece. Through Elevate Greece, we have mapped the innovation ecosystem in Greece, and we have helped the startups have important tools. But we now have data, and we actually have asked what technologies our startups use, and more than half of the Greek startups have already invested a lot in AI and machine learning, which is a very important indication. Also, in our research centers, we have 4 important research centers: CERF, based in Thessaloniki, Dimokritos in Athens, Fourth, which is based in Greece, and Athena in Athens, which do have scientific departments in institutions specifically for artificial intelligence. So in order to sum up, as a Greek, I can only close my remarks with an ancient Greek proverb. So as Isocrates has underlined, we should be patient in the present situation and have courage for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dimas, for your support, for your leadership, for your vision. And let me also invite on stage Mr. Yannis Mastrogeorgiou, Greece's government special secretary for strategic foresight. Mr. Mastrogeorgiou, the floor is yours. And thank you for.
Thank you very much. I guess it's a very typical difficult Greek name, my surname, but you did well. So, first of all, I'd
Learning.
like to, yes, indeed. I'd like to thank you very much for this invitation, and especially allow me to thank my close friend Eva and Madalena Kaili, and of course Future Society for the amazing job they did and the amazing job they did the last 2 days. I'm totally sure that we all are aware of amazing speeches and presentations in this couple of days, and looking forward for the next one. So, many of you may know that we recently established a special secretariat in Athens in Prime Minister's Office for strategic foresight, and particularly me, I'm working on the field of how AI affects the way people and the society, and how society thinks about technology, and how it absorbs artificial intelligence as a tool. And I would like to use my closing remarks speech on this issue through a recent example. Last week, you may have noticed that another strange, let's say so, episode in the unfolding story that is generative AI revolution and us, human beings, took part. And I want to underline that now we are living in a place, in a space, in a time, in an era of generative AI. Not only AI, we are in a step up of this kind of evolution. Sorry. Meta released Galactica. You may have noticed. It is a chatbot tool fueled by a large language model trained on 48 million published scientific papers. Galactica was intended to be an all-purpose science wonderbot, and Meta said it had amazing capabilities. Within hours, you guessed what happened. Problems arose. Users found that Galactica produced nonsense answers to simple math questions and stupid explanations of basic science. What's more, some of its outputs were grossly offensive. Then an interesting thing happened. Meta chief artificial intelligence strategist came up with a thread on Twitter, and more or less he said that, I would like to frame his argument in short, humans create and publish lots of toxic material every day. So why is this instance uniquely bad? First, the easy part. Meta were right to withdraw Galactica. Its outputs were just too chaotic for a general release to be useful. But Meta didn't do enough to position the tool as an experiment or to warn people that because it is trained on data created by humans, it would reflect biases, including racial and gender biases, sadly commonly found among us. That meant too great a risk that users would mistake its chaotic pronouncements for reliable science. But does Meta, and I want now to pose the questions, I'm not taking part in this kind of discussion because I think that we are living in a period where questions are more, let's say so, interesting than all the potential answers that we may find. Does Meta deserve the anger of those who accuse it of indifference to Galactica's offensive outputs? I think that this is the part where things are getting more complex. They did say, just not loudly enough, that the tool was experimental and that users should independently verify all of its pronouncements. Galactica went on to output some truly toxic stuff, and all reasonable people agree that racist and other toxic pronouncements are bad. The question then is, how should we respond in this case? For example, a lot of us, every one of us, use MS Word to write, not us, but other people on the web, to write some statements, racist ones, and then they use the internet to publish those statements to millions of people. Does this mean that MS Word is also a bad thing? Does this mean that we should withdraw the internet from public availability? Of course, we all understand the anger and the users of Galactica faced with racist outputs. When generative models display these biases, that's a reflection of this deeper truth, which is that this prejudice are widespread across our societies, and they are embedded in our cultural history, unfortunately, sometimes. So if we are going to work our way to generative AI tools that can help with science, second question, are we going to have to tolerate prototypes that produce false and even offensive statements? Are we saying that we are not willing to do or not to do that? Are we saying that it's more important that we are never exposed to any offensive statements than that we advance these technologies? As I told you before, I'm not taking part in this kind of discussion. I just want to pose the questions because that's a closing remarks, something to reflect maybe. Of course, it's bad that generative AI produce toxic outputs, but could we see that as a shared challenge to be overcome rather than proof that the tools and those who create them are not to be born, meaning that we tend to pay more attention on what AI is capable of, usually forgetting that is we, people, the humans, who make AI a powerful tool. I usually say that for the next decade, more or less, we are not going to have AI, meaning artificial intelligence. We are going to have IA, intelligent assistance. AI is not and probably will not be self-government. So I think we'll see these kind of questions become even more acute across the coming decade as we grapple with a new wave of technologies, transformer models, robots, virtual worlds, metaverse, that will have impacts we can't possibly yet understand. We need new frameworks. We need discussions such as these discussions that you made possible the last couple of days, new industry norms around these kinds of decisions. And in the meantime, it will be left to organizations and the professionals inside them to try to do the right thing. Those who do will reap benefits, both across their innovation practices and when it comes to public sentiment. Those who don't will get inflamed. But I guess that we do have the power, we people have the power, and we should be very, very careful on what we are doing, especially the next decades. The next 10 years, and that's my final statement, and sorry for any delay, the next 10 years will bring more exponential technology to humanity than the previous 100 years. Thank you very much. I wish you all the best.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Mastrogeorgiou. Apokardias, Eparistoparaboli.
Amazing.
I'm learning. See, and you really did a great job to help us project towards the next edition, the 5th edition. We've been discussing over the past 2 days, including generative large AI models. This is something we are going to continue to do next year. Let me finally turn to Mr. Alexandros Spyridonos, the co-founder of Ilontech, with whom TFS, the Free Society, has been proudly organizing the Athens Roundtable since 2019. Mantalena, Kylie, Alexandros, you've been great partners with us. But before I hand over the floor to you, I would like to spend a minute to again recognize and thank our co-hosts and supporting organizations, the European Parliament, of course, and we are virtually in the European Parliament on WebEx, and I appreciate their support, their team, their staff, their technical team as well. The OECD, UNESCO, the Council of Europe, the Patrick J. McGovern Foundation, the law firm Cravath, IEEE, the law firm Arnold & Porter, the Jane Family Institute, and the law firm Debevoise and Plimpton. And finally, I would like to express my deepest gratitude and admiration at the Free Society to Eva's team in Parliament and to Mantalena's and Alexandros' team at Ilontech for all the great and hard work that they have been producing over the past year and over the past 2 days. So I want to thank them. Nikki, Yolanda, come in. It's time to come in. Come. Yeah. You should be seen. Let's hack into WebEx now. You see a few of them there. There are other across the console. Producing an hybrid online event takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of great human beings. They are the women and men behind the Free Society and behind the Athens Roundtable. So thank you so very much, guys. Alexandros Spyridonos, the floor is yours for concluding remarks. Can you hear us?
Oh, thank you very much, Nico. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Oh, that's great. Can you see me as well?
I cannot see you yet. You may want
Can you
to
see me
switch
now?
on the camera. Yes.
Yes. Can you see me now?
Yes, et voilà.
Oh,
Poli. The floor is yours,
that's great.
Alexandros.
Nico, thank you very much for your speech and for our great cooperation on behalf of Elon Tech, European New Observatory on New Technologies, and of course our co-founder Mandalena Kaili. Thank you all the team of the Future Society and all the team of Elon Tech, and of course the wonderful team of Eva Kaili, the Vice President of the European Parliament, who have been working with us together the past months in order to do something very difficult, which was to organize this fourth edition of the Athens Roundtable 2022 in the European Parliament, which is something that combines Athens with Europe and with the rest of the world. Because the main conclusion which came out of this Athens Roundtable is that artificial intelligence is global, is worldwide, and we have to regulate this together. We have to regulate this in a transatlantic way. Of course, the main questions have been raised, many given answers, difficult and different answers have been given about what could be the definition of the AI systems, if they have to be broad or short, what could be the prohibited AI practices, if they have to be more or less, what could be the high-risk systems. And of course, all these are, in a very short time, going to be answered by the European Parliament and the European institutions in the European EU Act, which is coming shortly about AI. So we'll have many things to discuss in application of this new legislation in the fifth edition of the Athens Roundtable. But what is the main conclusion is that AI is here to stay, is here to expand, is here to interfere in our lives as soon as possible, as much as possible, and of course in all sectors of life, in defense, in law enforcement, in workplaces, and it is going to have an impact. Of course, we will have to draft a new chart of digital rights, which is also being drafted so far. And of course, we will have to define liability in more jurisdictions in the same way, because the AI enforcement cannot be seen only in separate jurisdictions. But the final remark is that AI is something that has to become positive, and it can become positive if we build trust together in all participants of the AI community. And we produce a safe AI model, safe AI institutions and systems which will allow to make us and to make our citizens' lives better, which was initially the first dream of the people who really built the European community and the European Union. So with this closing remark, I am going to welcome everyone to the fifth edition of the Athens Roundtable in year 2023, and I give back to Nico the floor.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very much, Alexandros, and thank you also, Magdalena. As we close this fourth edition and project ourselves towards the fifth edition, you'll hear from us. The reports, the video recordings, of course, will be published. We are also going to project ourselves towards the dates are not yet decided, but expect a similar time of the year. We don't know yet whether we'll be able to go back to Athens, but that's part of the plan, the next year or the year after. And let me leave you with this, a simple call to action. As we see each other 1 year from now, ask yourself, what will have you done? What will have you tried? And what will have you accomplished to help build and move the governance of AI from principles to practice in a way that leads to an effective AI governance regime that upholds the best from our democratic and fundamental values. I'll leave you with that. Thank you very much, dear audience. You've been very patient, and see you next year.